Hello everyone, in today's video we'll be making a calendar app using TypeScript and React. So let's get started. This is how our app is going to look like. So we're gonna have a calendar displaying 1 month and we have rows for the weeks. We have today's date marked here, and it's also a date picker, so we can click on the dates and select them. So let's start coding now. First, we're gonna create a new project using the template for React and TypeScript. This is the command which also I'm gonna include down below, and then we're gonna change the name. We can name it whatever we want, so you can just keep the my app. This will take a minute, so I'll come back when it's ready. So yeah, I set it into our new project that's created now. Now I'm gonna start the project. We do that by typing npm start, and this should open a new localhost URL in your browser. To go over the file structure, this is our project folder. So the source is where will be all your source code is gonna go in. So the main file app.tsx, this is where we output all the main components. Then we have the styles file app CSS, yeah, and then TypeScript, and again TSX is the format of files that we are saving. So our app is ready now and it's running. If it didn't automatically open in a browser for you, just go to this URL. So as you can see, it's running the code that was written there already. So what I first usually like to do is I usually like to create new folder for the components where we create all the UI components. And to help you better visualize how we're gonna divide the components, I'm gonna bring up the screenshot of our project. So as you can see, we're gonna have this main container that contains everything in our app. Then we're gonna have this a background here, and then another component is this the calendar component, which is also going to be divided into a header that has this 2 buttons to navigate in between the months. Then we have a section that gives us the days of the week, and then we have the rest of the dates here itself with its the picker containers. So let's start building that now. First, we're gonna build the outer container as we mentioned. So we create a new file here, name it date picker. And in every file we have to import React, every the component file. And then we're gonna create the functional component. Our component is not gonna take any props for now, so we're gonna, in here, we're gonna pass in empty object. Background image and the calendar. So let's create background image first. It's not really an image, we're just going to add the styling to it, so it has this the gradient colors. So let's go over to app. We're gonna add the background image first and set it to the gradient. So this is the colors that I chose, but you can add it to any hash of your preference. Alright, and then we're gonna set the width to 100%. And height, we're gonna pick arbitrarily 500 pixels. So it's not gonna show up here yet because we never, oh, I have a typo here, because we never have included this container in our app.tsx file. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna come here first. Whenever we want to use any component, we make an import statement, and the name of this was date picker. And then we indicate the file path. This one was from components folder. All right, and we're gonna remove all this extra code here and just return the date picker. All right, let's refresh our page now. Here it is. Now let's go back to this container, and well, in the components, what we want is that we want to create the calendar beneath this. So let's first create file for that. We're gonna name it calendar. Import React. And create our functional component. So in here we need to pass like an empty object, because if we don't do that, we're gonna get the error that it is empty. So we pass it like this. And we start declaring all these containers that we looked at previously. For first one, it's going to be our calendar container. Inside here, we're going to have the date picker container. Oh, why do I keep... Sorry. So let's start first filling out this calendar container. Dates in the calendar. First we need to create types. So I'm gonna create a new file inside our project. I'm gonna name it types, and it's gonna be TypeScript file. So we need two types of, I guess, types. First one would be date, and second would be a weekday, like Monday, Tuesday, etc. So date only needs like one value, and it's the which day it is, and this value would be of number type. I mean type of number. And so here's our second type, which is weekday. And right now we are just representing it with just like one letter, and that letter would be string. So let's save our types. Next thing we're going to do is that since we're not calling any of these days from API, we're just gonna create like constants for it. So usually for those kind of things, I create a separate configs folder. folder, name it configs. And in here first we are going to create a Weekdays file. So new file. So we're gonna define our constant weekdays. And so since in TypeScript we add type to everything, this is going to be, so we first make export statement because we later on want to export this constant. Then we give it name, which is in this case weekdays. Here we're gonna give it type, it's of type array, and then once we also define type array, we need to say what kind of elements this array has. In our case it's string, and we're just gonna create like values here. Go back to our calendar component. First thing is that we're gonna import types here. So we give the names of the types, and then we give the file path of the types folder. Second thing that we're gonna do is we're going to import our weekdays here. Because constant. And the path. Oh, I think I spelled it wrong. Okay. And then, yeah, we're going to also add like container for weekdays. So div class name, we're gonna name it weekdays container. And in here we are going to take these weekdays that we imported here and map them out. We're gonna go take each day and create a separate class for them. Let's name it weekday. And we're just going to take this day and print it out. Oh, I spelled it wrong again. All right. That should work. Now one more thing is that we want to include this calendar in day picker. So let's go back to day picker, import calendar. All right. Okay, as you can see, our days of the week are printed out here. Let's update some styling. So we're gonna start with styling calendar container first. So we're gonna set its width to be about like the half of the whole area, margin auto. This is gonna center our element. we're gonna set to position relative because we want it to be shifted up a little bit, like on this side. So it would be about like 500 pixels, and we're gonna add some padding. Add styling for this, like the Weekdays container. We're gonna set its display to flex, margin auto again to center it. We're gonna set the background color to white. And then since the background color is white, we want to make the string itself probably a different color. Let's see. Maybe pick gray. Oh. Not the money sign, the hash sign. Alright. Yeah, this is, and then right now, yeah, we wanted it to display in a row, and now we're gonna start building out the calendar itself. So it would be part of this div here. And for this, we also, the same thing that we did for Weekdays, we also want to generate number from like 1 to 30. So let's go create another config file. And in here we're gonna import our type date because the dates itself are gonna be of that type. And let's create the function that would generate the numbers from 1 to 30 for us. So we're gonna name the function. We're gonna also give what is it gonna return. So it's gonna return array of dates, array of type that has element type dates. So first let's create empty array that's gonna store our dates. So date equals an empty array. And let's write the for loop so that we don't have to manually write every single number from 1 to like 30. So for let start at 1. Let's do until 29. Say it's a February. And then let's create an object of type date. And as we saw in types folder, it needs to have this like one value date, and it has to be of type number. So while creating the object, we're gonna say day, and we're gonna pass it I, which would be the number in the for loop. And the next thing, we're gonna add this newly created date into our dates array. So at the end for this function, we're just gonna return dates. So now let's export this function so we can use it in our calendar. We're naming this constant month dates. It's of the type date array, and it's gonna call this function. And this function would return our array here. So let's save this and let's go back here and import it. list. So the same thing that we mapped out the weekdays here, we're gonna also map out the month. I don't just want to do the same thing as we did for weekdays, is because if we just print out all like 29 of the days, it will just be all aligned on the one line. So what we can do is that we can take this and take this huge array and split into arrays of 7. So let's write and name it generate weeks. So since this TypeScript, every function needs to have the argument data type defined. So this will take the array of the dates and let's create constant that's gonna save in what number we're dividing it into. In this case it is 7, and let's create like the temporary array that's gonna hold our values, and later on we're gonna this is double array, we just need a single array, and then later on we're gonna return this array. So let's create for loop, go over each element of the array that we're passing here and generate the subarrays. And we'll do this in like the sets of 7, which is days in week. And push these sets of arrays that have 7 elements in our temporary array. And then just return the array. Alright, this is just giving us notice that we have not yet used. So another array that we want to, so another function that we would want to create is a function that just goes over this arrays of 7 and just creates like div elements for our dates. So let's write that function here now. So it'd be constant, let's name it generate dates. So this one, instead it will be we're gonna be passing like number to it. And yeah, let's create the for loop. And then it's gonna return. We're gonna turn this into a button because later on we want to make it available to like select the date. So doing this. And then the value of the button would be the date. And we're gonna also like display date inside of it too. Alright, now let's go to the calendar container and make use of these functions here. So first we are gonna generate the weeks, so calling this function. And we're gonna pass the month dates that we imported here. And this is gonna divide this into weeks. Then we're gonna take each week and print it out. Oops. Okay, why is this? What is this? And then for each week, we're gonna map each day. So remember that the days are of type date, and just because we have this function that takes the number, we're gonna pass its value day, which is also a number. Alright, let's see what we have here. Okay, as you can see, it's divided by 7. We have 4 rows. Now let's do some styling on our components. Let's start with calendar. So we're setting this to column because calendar has weeks and we want those displayed in column. We're gonna center them to first, like, well, interesting. Style the week itself, so it would be the div inside the calendar. Oh. Align items, also flag start. So we want the contents to like stretch it out to full length. Width is also 100%. Height, same thing. And background for it to be white. Alright, now since we have a this, like, the dates itself are buttons, it has this like automatically applied this styling. So let's just remove that. All right. Let's add our scrubber for the month here. So it would be on top of the weekdays container. So here we have a date picker. We're gonna So let's add icons to scrub the month. So first I'm going to create, I usually have a folder separate for assets where I save all my images and icons. So let's do assets, and then let's create another folder for icons. So usually I do use libraries like Material UI, Font Awesome for the icons, where you can directly npm install these libraries and then just import the icons at the top and use them. But just because this is a mini project, I just downloaded SVGs and modified them to be components. So we're gonna need two files, one for the left and the right one. And what I did is that I modified SVGs so they are more customizable. If you're familiar with SVG, this is what is provided. Usually height, width, and the fill color is set. But just because we want it to be more customizable, instead this would be passed as props, and then this would be like the default values. I'm gonna do the same for the right one. And then we'll import them. And with this date picker. So we want this also to be a flex component, and the direction we want it to be appearing as a row. We'll stretch it out all the way between, center it, set the background to white, and we want it to have rounded borders and corners at the top, so we're going to set that too. Alright, let's set the font size for our header. Well, actually it's a span to make it a little bigger than the rest of the HTML elements. And for our icons, let's do some styling for that too. I'll wrap around in like a circle, so that's how we do it. We're gonna give a little bit gray background, because right now it's not going to be functional, so it's going to look like it is disabled on purpose. And set some margin for it. Oh, I spelled the container wrong. That's why we're not seeing any styling, but our elements are there. Alright, so the next thing we'll do is that we're gonna create like today's date and its styling. So I arbitrarily picked up 18, and we're gonna have a separate class that's gonna be responsible for styling that. So first we're gonna go to generate dates, and here we're gonna wrap this into a condition. So class name would be conditional, and then here we'll check if the date itself is equal to 18. Then we're gonna add another class for today. If not, nothing. Set the background color something. I think this is like pink. The color of the text would still need to declare state that's gonna hold our date. So I'm gonna do that here, and I'm declaring the state using React hooks. Naming it. So this either is gonna be null, or if there's a value, then it's just gonna be like string. So and then we're gonna, when the button is pressed, that's when we want to set the state. So we're gonna add on click here. And we'll define this handle change function. So this will be taking in, it's a mouse event since it is pressed. So to use the mouse event, we need to import it from here. So let's do mouse event. And then for the use state, I forgot previously the same thing. And it is the HTML button element that we have here. And then we're gonna use our update the state function and pass it the value of the button that was pressed. Alright, and then we need to add another styling class to differentiate whether or not specific button is pressed. So here we're gonna have another condition, same as what has been selected, then we will add another class. So we're gonna use our state here, selected date, and then if this is true, add this class. If not, just leave it blank. So we're getting error here because the selected date itself is of type either string or null, and then this one right here, the date, is of a different type. So what we're gonna do up here is we're just gonna actually convert one type from another. This is usually not the best practice since we want them to be of the same type. But just because we have the option to keep this as null, we'll check if it is null first. If not, then we're just gonna use parse int selected date. And then if it is null, we're just gonna set to 0, and then we're gonna use selected date number here instead. Let's add also the styling for the selected element. So for this one, we're gonna have set some border. Then gray and make it rounded. Alright. Oh, so HTML needs to be caps lock indeed. This is okay, and then yeah, it gets selected, and then anytime we press somewhere else, it gets updated. Alright, this is pretty much it. Let's just clean up the styling here first. Let's see what we have in date picker. Let's update styling for the date. Alright, this is it. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments down below if you'd like to see more functionalities on this calendar app, like creating events or editing them, also saving them to the database. And to sum up, we went over creating types using TypeScript. We also created functional components, functions, and we used hooks to generate React hooks for the state. Thank you.